Hello, everyone. So, today let's talk about multiple POVs and multiple characters that have their own storylines in a book. So, a while back, while trying to attain, and I did attain it eventually, my MFA, Masters of Fine Arts in Creative Writing through National University, I was going through the process of writing my thesis. And in an MFA program, the thesis is a full manuscript, a full novel. In National University, it was either that or poems. I forgot the quantity of the poems. It was just a full manuscript of poems or a script because it was either creative writing, script writing, or poetry. And since I was going for the creative writing, I did a manuscript. And I've said this before, but my first thesis that I tried to embark in was a YA fantasy. And this YA fantasy was dual POV. And it had the protagonist and the antagonist as two leading characters. And when I presented this to my thesis professor, she asked me, "Whose story are you telling?" And I was stumped. I was like, "What do you mean?" Both of the stories and both of these characters' stories. And I went on this whole, like, when you start ranting and then you just go on this long explanation. And then while doing that long explanation, and afterwards, you're like, you feel less than intelligent because you can't believe that you had to use that many words to explain something that should be really succinct. That was me. That happened to me. And I kind of knew that I was not on the right path based on this answer. So, what she did, mind you, all of these professors in the MFA program in National University, they're very kind and respectful. So, even while they're telling you that you are wrong, I'm very kind and respectful. They're not demeaning, they were not demeaning at all or anything like that. But I still, I mean, you're a creative person, right? I'm a creative person. So I do feel some sort of way when I hear that, however kind it comes out. And and that's what happened. And she referred me to a book, and I will add that to the show notes, probably put the picture of the book here because I can't think of it at the moment. And she referenced that book. I bought it immediately, and I bought the audiobook version of it as well and the ebook version of it as well, so that way I can digest it however way I could, because I have a full-time job. So I was like, hey, if I'm on the car, I'm digesting it through audiobook. If I'm doing this, if I'm on a plane traveling, I'm digesting it on audiobook. And if I'm at home and have some time, I'm digesting it on the physical paperback version and annotating it and highlighting it. So that's what I did. And this book explained that basically, while it is absolutely doable to have more than one main character, it often falls flat, especially with new writers that are trying to push out their debut, because it is something that requires a lot of experience. Because what you're doing essentially, as the book described and as the professor described as well, is that you are weaving two stories into one. So basically, both of these characters, or however many main characters are in your story, they will need to have their own character arc, their own growth or lack thereof. Maybe one character ends the novel on a positive note, right, with growth. Maybe another one doesn't. Another one goes on the negative at the end. Or maybe one flatlines while the other one goes up. Or maybe one goes down and then the other one flatlines. Whatever. But there has to be a change to that character throughout the novel, or else it's not interesting, right? And that's why we write conflict in there, right? And that's why we push these characters to do these incredible things, because that is what entertains the reader while teaching them something at the same time, right? If you are writing that kind of book. I do. I like to have a lesson in there as well as entertainment. And that's how the book and the professor explained it to me. And that's why she asked me that question, which was, whose story are you telling? Because at the end of the day, you have to pick that one central focus. because then all the other characters, right? However their arc is, the whole point is that it needs to intersect that central character, right? So let's say you have 4 characters, and character A is your main character. That's your center character, right? So that means that character B, C, and D, their arc, their character arc has to somehow intersect with character A, because we are mostly focusing on character A. So, and I've seen it where authors, and they will show you on YouTube, I don't know if it's Samberry, or I follow successful authors on YouTube. They're great to watch. They are their own master classes to watch, and I can link the ones that I go into YouTube and watch, so that way y'all can watch them as well if you so want to. And one of them did this graph where they were like, name of character, and then they show their trajectory, right? And it's kind of like a heart line, a heartbeat. And then you'll see the other character, right? Boom, 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 boom. And then in their own character arc, in their plot, you can see where they intersect, at what timeline they intersect. And then the same thing with the other one, boom, right? So you see what I'm saying? So it's like, it requires a certain level of skill. And I'm not saying that new authors don't have this kind of skill. I didn't. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't use that as my thesis statement, because I understood right away, once I understood the way to do it, that I didn't have the skills to do it that way, much less to do it my own way, right? Because usually when you are doing it your own way and you're rebelling it out, it's usually because you have mastered the basics. And I hadn't mastered the basics at that point, so I was like, how can I even rebel, right? If I haven't even mastered the basics. So I went ahead and I switched it to Mrs. Franchi's Evil Ring and the 6 months that changed everything, because that is one POV, one character that I completely follow throughout the story. Yes, there are friends in there. Yes, the adults in Isla's lives play a vital role, and they have a lot of lines in there because Isla oftentimes is listening to them. But the story is not about them. The story is about Isla. So she is the center of that novel. She is the sole character that I'm focusing on. So that's why everything is from her point of view, how it affects her, how moving from her mom's and stepdad's house to her father and stepmom's house, how does that affect her? How does that make the trauma that happened to her when she was 5, how does that make it even worse? You see, so these are the things that I'm focusing on in the book, because they are Isla's struggles, they're Isla's trauma, they're Isla's stories. Does that mean that the other characters don't go through things? They do. They do. Isla's mom goes through something because she realizes at the end, right, that maybe there was a better way to communicate to Isla. Her dad breaks down, right, because he's like, I failed you when you was 5, and I didn't realize that you needed more after that moment in life, right? But at the end of the day, that's not where I stop the story. That's not where the spotlight just goes like, in theater, right? When the spotlight goes, no, even as the dad is saying all of this, the spotlight is on Isla, because I'm in Isla's head. And I am explaining to the reader how Isla feels. What is she feeling? What is she thinking? What is she saying out loud? What is she not saying out loud when her parents are talking to her and telling her all of this? Or when her bestie is talking to her bestie. Evelise, she has a big role, right? Big role. But once again, the spotlight is not on her. The spotlight is on Isla. So that's a way to do it when you have a lot of characters that play a major role, right? But you have that one center character that the story is all about. But if you do want to embark on dual POVs or quadruple or whatever, or triple POVs, it's very doable. I suggest just looking at those successful books that have done it and try to dissect it. I think that's the best masterclass that we can do as writers, is dissect successful books, read it as a reader first, and then read it as a writer, as if you're trying to learn the craft from that writer, and see what is it that you like, see what you didn't like so that way you don't do that, and write notes about it, and then go on and draft your novel, and then go ahead and critique your novel the same way that you critique that other one, right? That successful one. So that way you can see where you stand and you learn from it every time you do this. That's something that we were taught to do in the MFA program as well. A lot of the time in the MFA program, we spent reading other people's work, critiquing other people's work, and then we went ahead and try to write our own, and then our classmates critique it and so forth, and we gain feedback and we gain something from that critique. But yeah, so talking about those POVs that are not one, I'm trying to think, that's why I'm like looking off in the distance, because I know I have read some that are really, really good. And off the top of my head right now, I can think of The Build-Up. The Build-Up by Tati Richardson. I just finished that. That was a 5-star for me. It was really good. The story was great. The characters were amazing. They were so real. And this was a dual POV, okay? Contemporary romance, coworker romance. And she did an amazing job on the dual POV. And let me tell you why. Because I have seen it where character A goes through this, right? And then character B goes through the same thing. And I get bored. So by the time I get to character B and I'm having to rehash that whole scene, but from their perspective, I'm like, been there, done that. I already read it. I don't need to know all of this. But Tati Richardson, she did something different and made it very fresh and made it so that way I wouldn't be bored, which was when character A finished their scene, character B will start another one. Maybe they may say something like really quickly about like, oh, when she reacted that way, right? And then they will have that little note in there about how character B reacted to something that just happened in character A's chapter. But believe you me, character B started in a whole different scene that propelled the story forward. So we weren't stagnant waiting on character B to have their own epiphany. Character B was pushing the story along, right? In another scene, not in the same scene, where we had to rehash the scene that I just read from character A, just on character's B point of view. You see what I'm saying? Because that, for me as a reader, that is boring. I don't like that. And that's how I've seen those dual POVs kind of like not hit the mark with me. And the one that I'm currently reading right now, which has to do about Prima's cousin, is Big Chicas Don't Cry. And in that one as well. So this is more than dual POVs because this is several cousins. I want to say it's like 4 of them. And the characters have their name of whatever cousin it is that we're embarking on when we're reading about that cousin. But you can tell that there's one. Once again, I go back, my professor was right. My professor was right. So there's one that is like the main, because everything revolves around her, right? And all the characters talk about her. You see what I'm saying? So we can say this is like a quadruple POV book, but when you peel the layers, one character is still holding the reins. One character is the one where we're focusing on. And that's the character that is leading. It's kind of like leading the pack, right? So you have a pack of horses or a pack of dogs or whatever, right? There's going to be one that pulls the rein, right? That's going to be your alpha in the front that pulls the rein. Are all of them going to be pulling? Yes. But the alpha one is the one leading. That's the one leading you through your path. Look at it that same way when you have various characters that play a major role in your story. There's going to be one alpha, right, in there that leads the reader through that story. That's going to be the one that you focus on. Do all your characters, do you still focus on all your characters? Do you still make them 3-dimensional? Yes. Even if it's a side character, because at the end of the day, you want your reader to come out of that story as if they just jumped out, like magical style. They jumped out of a different world, right? And that's how you can make that happen, is by making your characters feel as human as possible, even if it is just the side character. But think about it that way, as who is leading, who is propelling that story forward. That's your alpha character. But yeah, and look at those books if you want to look at them. Big chicas don't cry. It's a great example. Now thinking about it, the more that I think about it, I'm like, you know what? This is a great example. I'm glad I remember that. Yeah, but go read it and go see, and then you're gonna tell me that yes, you're right, or maybe you're gonna tell me I'm full of doo doo, right? But from my point of view, there is a character that propels it, and all the other characters are talking about her. And you can tell that when she goes through her whole change, that is the culmination of that story. But the other characters are going through their changes as well. The other characters have their own arc. They have their own love interests. They have their own struggles that they're going through, and you see that throughout the book. But this main character in Big Chicas Don't Cry, she is the one that the story is centered on. I know, I know. I felt the same way when my professor explained it to me. I was like, yeah, right. I wanted to be right so bad. I was like, I know what I'm doing. I'm a writer. My imagination is great. My creativity is amazing. I have a talent. She was right. Oh, yeah, she was right. But if you like this video and you want to hear some more, or if you have questions about writing and stuff like that, and I can answer them because it's something that I've gone through or I struggle with, please let me know. Just leave me a comment, whatnot. I'm Joa from Have a Cup of Johanny, and I'm here to talk about everything that I write and read. I want you to join me. All right, bye.